Welcome to Lanak's Maths Tutoring. Today we'll be covering arithmetic patterns. We'll firstly go through the concepts and then do examples to reinforce the knowledge. By the end of this video, you should be able to tackle different kinds of arithmetic patterns questions. Alright, to get started with arithmetic patterns, we're going to start with the general term equation, which is as follows. Alright, so what we know is that A is the first term. Then D is what we know as the common difference. Right? So how do we get the common difference? Common difference is the difference between two consecutive terms. Right? So that's Tn plus 1 minus Tn. Right? So this would be the next term to a specific term. Right? And how can we get the next term? Well, by rearranging this equation, we can get the next term, which can be given with the formula as follows. So it's basically the term plus the common difference, right? Then in order to know whether we have an arithmetic pattern or not, there is an equation that we can use to check that. So the difference between consecutive terms should be equal, such that the third term minus the second term, the difference between the third term and the second term should be equal to the third term to the second term minus the first term. So in order for us to have an arithmetic pattern, this equation should hold. Alright, we'll be covering the first question in arithmetic patterns. The question reads, find the value of the first three terms of the following sequences when the general term is Tn equals to 3n plus 4. Alright, you can pause this video and have an attempt at this question. Then when you are sure of your answer, you can come back again and see how it is solved. Alright, so starting with the question. So we know that our formula is Tn equals to 3n plus 4. So we're looking for the first three terms. So we're supposed to start with the first term. So T1 would be equals to 3 times 1 plus 4, right? So 3 times 1 would give us 3 plus 4. The answer would be 7, right? And then we're gonna do the second term, which is T2, which would be 3 times 2 plus 4. 3 times 2 will give us 6 plus 4. Then this would give us 10. Then our third term would be 3 times 3 plus 4. 3 times 3 is going to give us 9 plus 4. That will be 13. So we then know that our first term is 7, and our second term is 10, our third term is 13, and so on. So this is the first three terms of our equation. Alright, for our second question, Second question reads, determine the general term of the following arithmetic sequence, which is -4, -1, and then 2, right? So you can also go ahead, pause this video, and have you attempt at this question. Alright, and so for this question, we know that the general term is given as Tn, equals to a plus n minus 1 multiplied by the common difference, right? So for us to determine the general term, we need to get the first term, which is a, and we need to get the common difference, right? So if we look here, we already have our first term, which is -4. So a equals to -4, right? Then now we need to determine our common difference, right? So we're gonna do it as -4, -1, then we have 2, right? So now we check what is the difference between our numbers. So the difference between -4 and -1 is going to give us 3. So -4 plus 3 give us -1. Then -1 plus 3 would give us 2. So our common difference is 3. And so now for our general term, what we're going to end up with is that Tn equals to our first term, -4, plus n minus 1 multiplied by a common difference, which is 3, right? And we can simplify this further by saying that -4, then we're going to have 3n minus 3. So we're going to have 3n, then -4 minus 3 is going to give us -7. So here is our general term in simplified form. Tn equals to 3n minus 7. Alright, as a tip, in order for you to get your difference, you can basically do this. So you can say, so this is our first term, this is our second term, this is our third term. So you can say your second term minus the first term. So this will give you -1 plus 4. This will result in what? In 3. So that it's your difference between -4 and -1. And then for 2 and -1, you can say 2 minus 1. So this will be 2. And then we have 2 plus 1 plus negative by negative will give you a positive. So that is 2 plus 1, which will result into 3. So that's how you get your difference, your common difference. Alright, and so for our third question, it then goes, determine how many terms there are in the following sequence: -9, -4, 1, then our last term is 41, the value of our last term. So now we need to determine how many terms there are in the following sequence. So let's go back to our general term equation, which is Tn equals to a plus n minus 1 multiplied by the common difference. Alright, and so we know the first term, a, which is -9, and we need to find our common difference, Then we also know the value of our last term, which is the value which is Tn, but we don't know n, the actual term for that results in 41, right? So what we need to solve for is n. So what's in question here? It's n. All right. So we know our first term is -9, right? Let's find our common difference. So -9, -4, and then 1, right? So now we say -9. So the difference here will go basically your -4 minus 9. So that's -4 plus 9. That will give you how much? That will give you 5, right? And then we also have 1 minus 4. Then we say 1. So a negative sign, by a negative sign, that will be a positive. So that is 1 plus 4, which gives us 5. So what we have, the difference here is 5. So that's our common difference, 5, right? Right, so our D is equals to 5, right? Then we need to solve for n, right? So we know that Tn equals to 41. So now let's solve for n, right? So now, given that we have Tn, which is 41, then a, which is -9, plus n minus 1, our D is 5. So now we need to solve for n. So 41, 9, so that will give us 5n minus 5, right? And so this will give us how much? 41, -9, right? Let's just yes. So it will give us 5n, -9 minus 5, that will give us -14, right? And then 5n, that will be 41 plus 14. So let's proceed this side. So that will give us how much? To give us 55. So 5n plus 2, 55. So our n is 55 divided by 5, which will give us 11. So n equals to 11, right? So how many terms there are? Therefore, there is how many terms? There is 11 terms. There is 11 terms in the sequence. Alright, on our fourth question, it reads, if the third and seventh term of an arithmetic progression are 9 and 25 respectively, determine the 15th term. So you can pause and give an attempt to this question. Alright, so what we know, as you know, for any arithmetic progression, our general term is Tn plus 2a n minus 1 multiplied by d, right? So now what we know is that T3 plus 2 a n minus 1 multiplied by d, right? So we know our third term is 9, right? And we know n is going to be 3. It's 3 minus 1 multiplied by d. So we have this 3 minus 1, that will give you 2. So you end up with 2d, right? So we can, okay, this is basically our first equation from what we know for the third term, right? Now what about the seventh term? We know that for a seventh term, a is n minus 1 multiplied by d, right? So our seventh term equals to 25. Then a, and this we know is our seventh term, so it's going to be like that. Then we have 25, a, and then 7 minus 1, that's 6. And then this will give you 6d, right? And so now we have two equations and two unknowns. And when we have two equations and two unknowns, what do? We solve simultaneously. Alright, so we can make one of the equations a subject of the formula. So we can say a equals to 9 minus 2d, right? So the subject of the formula is a, and this is our first equation. Then we have this as our second equation, right? And so now we need to substitute. So therefore, 25 equals to 9 minus 2d plus 6d. We're gonna solve for the letter d here. So we have 25, right? And so this is basically 9 minus 2d plus 6d. Alright, we have 25 equals to 9 minus 2d plus 6d. So we have 25, so negative 2d plus 6d, that should give you 4d. Then we have 25 plus 2, so basically I have 25 minus 9 plus 2, 4d, right? And so what you're gonna have there, you're gonna have 25 minus 9, that'll give you 16. So 16 equals to 4d. So we can even rearrange this to say 4d equals to 16. Same thing. So d equals to 16 divided by 4, which will give us 4, right? So we know d equals to 4, right? Then now what is a? What is a equals to? So a equals to, in the equation we know a is 9 minus 2d. So 9 minus 2, and we know d is 4, so 2 times 4. So we basically have 9 minus 8, which is 1, right? So from our general term, which is Tn equals to a and 1 minus d, we know that a is 1 and 1 minus d, and then we know what difference is 4. So this will be 4n minus 4, right? Therefore Tn equals to 1 minus 4, that's negative 3, so 4n minus 3, right? But remember, the question is what is our 15th term? So T15 is going to be cos 2, 4 times 15 minus 3. So this is basically 15. 4 times 15, that will give you 60 minus 3. That's 57. So the 15th term is 57. Alright, so now we're on the fifth question, and it reads, if 3x minus 5, 5x minus 6, and 2x plus 8 form an arithmetic sequence, find x. Right, so this is our fifth question. So you can pause the video and have an attempt at it. Alright, so we know that 3x minus 5 is going to be our first term, and 5x minus 6 will be our second term, and 2x plus 8 will be our third term. And we know for an arithmetic sequence that the difference between consecutive terms is equal, such that T3 minus T2 is equal to T2 minus T1, right? So now T3 in the sequence is 2x plus 8. So this is going to be 2x plus 8 minus 5x minus 6 equals 2. Our second term is 5x minus 6 minus the first term, which is 3x minus 5, right? So we basically have 2x plus 8 going to be minus 5x. Then this is going to be negative by negative, will be positive. So that's plus 6. Then we have 5x minus 6. This will be minus 3x. Negative by negative, that's positive 5. Right. Then 2x minus 5x, that will give us minus 3x. Then 8 plus 6, that will give us 14. Then we know 5 minus 3 will give us 2x minus 6 plus 5 will give us minus 1, right? So we can solve for x, so this will be minus 3x plus minus 2x. Then we have minus 1 minus 14. So we're going to have minus 2x minus 2x. That will give us minus 5x, which we're going to end up having minus 15. So x equals to minus 15 divided by minus 5, which is going to give us what? Positive 3. Therefore, x equals to 3. Alright, so we've already solved for x. We know that x equals to 3. So question B is saying, what is the first three terms of the sequence in numerical form? So we know that the first term is 3x minus 5, second term is 5x minus 6, third term 2x plus 8. So we can do this and say T1 is 3x minus 5. We already know what x is. So x is going to be 3. So this is 3 times minus 5. So we have 9 minus 5. which is going to give us what? 4. Then you have t2, which is 5x minus 6. So you have 5 multiplied by 3 minus 6. So that is 15 minus 6, which is going to give you what? 9. Then our third term is 2x. It's 2x plus 8, which is going to be 2 multiplied by 3 plus 8. So that is going to be 6 plus 8, which is going to give us 14. So the first term is 4, second term is 9, third term is 14. So you basically have 4, 9, 14, and so on. Alright, now that we have solved 5b, let's go to 5c. Now we need to determine the general term, right? So remember that from our pattern here we have 4, 9, 14, right? So you can write that down, 4, 9, 14, and so on, right? So now we need to determine what's a, or that a equals to 4, right? A equals to 4, and then we need to find our common difference. So we can make this 4, 9, 14. So difference 9 minus 4, well, that's going to give us 5. And 14 minus 9, that's also 5, right? So now that we have this, we can go to our general term equation, which is Tn equals to a plus n minus 1 multiplied by the common difference, right? So Tn, you know that a is how much? It's 4. We have n minus 1. Common difference is 5. So Tn is going to be 4. 5 times n, that's 5n. 5 times 1, that's 5. So Tn is going to be 5n. 4 minus 5 will give you negative 1. So therefore, we know that a general term is this. So Tn equals to 5n minus 1. And that is it for arithmetic patterns.
Don't forget to subscribe.